Can you hear me? Can you hear the Zoom audience? Can you hear okay? Oh, that's good. That's good. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is our regular 11 o'clock meditation followed by talk, which we have been having throughout the lockdown, of course, as usual, as one of our regular activities of the center for so many years. We are today opening for the first time after all this lockdown here at in person at our center here in Holder. And it's not because we have the lockdown has eased, but also we have a very special speaker here, which most of you will have really good reason to hear the story and talk. And others are here as very old friends who know Ron so many years ago, but haven't seen him so long. So it's very nice to have him back. But here, first, I will lead the meditation. So please take your space and secure your space and your mind and body in a meditative mood and conduct. I suggest you to observe mainly 4S, what I call stillness, sincerity, serenity, and simplicity. So try to sit still throughout the calm, abiding meditation, externally the physical posture, and then internally let your attention also be still. I will lead the meditation in 3 short 10 minutes. But first we will do this traditional Buddhist prayers, which is the affirmation of our faith and belief in the teachings of the Buddha that help us to understand our mind and our life and situations. So the prayers, most of you know by heart. Those who are here, you know, you've got the prayers next to you. So please join your hands at the heart and we'll recite the 2 verses first, the refuge enlightenment thought, followed by 4 immeasurable thoughts, during which you can put your attention and intention and try to cultivate a sense of stillness and presence in being here, and with the meditation we will do with the benefit and wish to radiate benefit to all sentient beings. O yenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Pite Lite Pai Virtue Ajive Ajare Pada and the Dhamma Sangha Aitere Yedela Pai Virtue Ajive Ajare Pada and the Dhamma Sangha Aitere Yedela Pai Virtue Ajive Ajare Pada Virtue. May all be happiness and the cause of happiness. May there be abrasa, and a cause of suffering. Medene from the heaven, then suffering. Free from attachment and to those and the cause of happiness, may there be Abraham's and the cause of suffering, may they never find the happiness than suffering, agony, free from attachment and to those and the cause happiness, may there be Abraham and the cause of suffering, may they never from the happiness than suffering, amid agony, free from attachment and to those So sit very still and actively scan your posture from the feet all the way to the crown, with your hands on the lap, particularly the two thumbs touching below the navel, elbows, shoulders relax, back is straight, chin slightly tucked in, jaws, lips, teeth relax, eyes half open, straight on the floor, not blinking. A soft, peaceful, loving gaze. And the stillness of this posture is the object of attention during this first 10 minutes. Use a reasonable pace to scan the posture up and down, From the feet all the way to the crown, from where your single hair pulls you towards the ceiling. And do that again before you reverse, scanning downwards, so that your mindfulness positioning the posture, knowing the significance, correcting gently where there's a little stiff, relax, where the body is a little slack and not putting effort, put a little bit of extra effort. In this way, have a very bright and serene attention. After good 6 to 8 rounds of scanning, take a mini break if necessary. Try to hold this vigil to sit with all the people next to you, so the mind reconstitutes to a very, very present and very knowing, very calm posture of the body, supported by the attitude of the mind and good attention. while maintaining your posture of the body. Now, focus your attention to the conscious inhalation. As you inhale, think of something positive to inhale, seeing the oxygen bringing all the wholeness, and feel inspired. With this, stay still with the inhalation. Then as you permeate the breath in the lung, imagine the oxygen streaming into the bloodstreams, flooding your whole nervous system, rejuvenating the body and the mind. And then as you exhale, breathe out the carbon or any difficulties with that out breath and feel relief. In this way, stay very still and serene and sincerely do the rounds of breath. If possible, try to do forward counting at the end of each exhalation. Mentally count, that is 1, the next one 2, and so on, mindfully to keep the endurance and stillness of attention bright. To the extent even you lose the count, you're aware but not agitated. If you don't lose the count, keep counting as high a number. But if you lose the count, just take a conscious mini break. Correct the posture, spend a couple of moments, relax, and then again go back to resume doing qualified attention with every round of the breath. Let the breath become something not only you do, but you know, you can see and follow and feel the effect of calming and increasing your stillness and serenity. Now try to increase your attention in a very qualified manner so as to be able to do the same rounds of breathing, but added resolution of your attention to witness the super qualified quality of inhalation and permeation and exhalation. But you do reverse counting. Say if you reach 40 in the forward counting in the previous technique, this time you reverse count backwards from 40 to the first super qualified inhalation by seeing the gentle beginning, peak, and conclusion of inhalation, feeling really inspired, then permeate gently, and then swells, and then slowly it tapers off. You feel super rejuvenated. And then as you exhale, gently, and then strong force of exhalation, slowly tapering off. Use the super qualified exhalation to let go bad feelings, tiredness, worries, and anxieties. And then as you finish the end of exhalation, count that as 40. And then next one, 39, 38, and so on. By maintaining the stillness of your posture and attention to do the counting reverse, with sincerely feeling from your heart, serene, sharp attention, without any touch of sluggishness. Simply stay with the technique with good discipline. So thank you everyone with the meditation for being so still and very, very focused. Particularly Zoom audience helped me because they are all so still. usually, usually you don't know who's still or not, but with Zoom, everybody's just so still. So thank you, everybody. So this morning we have a special speaker. It is Ron Foster. Some of you may have not met, but you will meet him now. Others, a few old friends who are able to be here that who know him, and others who may be joining us on the platforms today on Zoom and YouTube and Facebook. So I'm sure you'll all be happy to see how Ron has outlived so many of our friends who actually have passed away of those generations. They never had any of those health issues, but they have definitely passed away. But Ron, who went through a very difficult with his health, but miraculously recovered. And he's got a really nice, inspiring story about love and generosity and good karma. And so he's been with us very long time from the early stages in the early stages of center until we bought Virupa. So Ron was very crucial member and one of the presidents who worked very hard to establish the center. We used to have Ron, Rob, and Rod, these three R's. and so the other two are somewhere, but not here. But Ron is here. So please, we will do the prayer requesting the teaching before we welcome Ron up here. If Jeannie want to join, with the chair, you can sit there, of course. If not, because you're part of the really beautiful story, so people might want to see your face. So please feel free to come up and later on, but we will do this prayer first. According to the intelligence and predisposition of it, you turn the Dharma, Agela, and Karma.
Hi guys, we seem to be having some technical problems, or am I the only person who is?
Is that Jackie?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, hey Jack.
Hey Matt, can you see or hear?
No, I was tuning into the Facebook stream and noticed it all went quiet, so I thought I'd pop in here and see what was happening. But yeah, it's all quiet.
Yeah, I'm on the Zoom one as well, and there's nobody on Zoom either.
Did you want me to text Jörg?
Yeah, maybe. I've tried texting Rinpoche, and he hasn't. Oh, he doesn't know why. I don't think.
Ah, so they're still going ahead in the centre.
I think so.
Oh yeah, I can see Rinpoche and Ron on screen now.
Okay, which app's that? That's Facebook, is it?
It's muted.
Ah, there you go.
Ron was,
sorry about that.
see, it's meditation on silence.
Yes,
So try that first.
yes.
So they didn't hear a thing. So
They didn't hear a thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you didn't hear anything.
So you might have to recap a little bit.
You want me to recap? Okay. Well, I was talking about us. Let's see. We were living in Japan, and I had started to feel unwell in the final year of my period there, and I had also arranged another job in Jakarta. So we came back to Australia, and we came back for a week, stayed with some friends, and just to do a couple of things, and I failed the medical, which well, probably wasn't very surprising since I wasn't feeling that flash. And at that point, I was grounded. They wouldn't let me leave the country. So I was looking for a way to get to Jakarta, and I couldn't find a doctor who could see me inside about 6 months. So I ended up going into emergency with a letter from my GP, and the head of the renal area in Canberra Hospital came down to see me, and he agreed to make an appointment and have a look at the situation and give me some help. So that quickly is that was a much more succinct than my usual rambling rendition of what I was just saying. So anyway, as I went to see him, and he seemed to think that I had this rare thing that he'd only seen once before in Canberra, and it was something that hadn't been studied very much, called light chain deposition disease, which is basically boils down to the blood system is producing light chains of protein, which deposit in soft tissue and destroy organs. So in my case, his view was that there were light chains being deposited in my kidneys, so he said he wanted to do a biopsy on my kidneys. So okay, if it gets me to Jakarta, I'll do anything. He did that, and around about the same time I was driving the car, and I suddenly just lost it completely. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't steer, and I had to sort of take my foot off the accelerator, and I couldn't speak, so I couldn't tell Jeannie what was going on. And she noticed there was something wrong, and she grabbed the steering wheel, and we eventually came to a safe halt. And next thing I knew, I had a what do you call them? A neurologist or something? Not a neurologist. Anyway, a brain specialist, whatever they're called. And he was he and the renal guy were convinced that I was probably getting light chains in my brain, which would be rather a nuisance. So anyway, he did his biopsy, and he came back and said, "Oh yeah, there's definitely light chains in your kidneys." I said, okay, so what do we do now? And he said, "Oh, I want you to go and see this hematologist." Turned out the hematologist was his wife, but and I did start to wonder what was going on here at this stage. I have to confess, I'm a very suspicious person at heart. Anyway, so I went to see the hematologist. And she wanted to do a biopsy too, this time a bone marrow biopsy, and she was looking for evidence. So she did her bone marrow biopsy, and it showed a cell dyscrasia of 9%, I think it was. And she said, "Oh, that's not good. You know, come back and see me on such and such a date, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, I went back and had a read of all this stuff. And it turned out that to be a full-blown, it's a little bit like myeloma. So it's that sort of, it's a blood cancer basically. And to be a full-blown one, it has to be 12%. And I thought, well, you know, 9's not bad. maybe I can still get to Jakarta. But anyway, she didn't think that 9 was very good at all when I went back to see her, and she said she wasn't entirely certain. So why don't we think about it over Christmas? Because by this stage we were getting up into November, December. And she said, "Let's think about it over Christmas and come back and see me on the, I don't know, the 3rd of January or something." You know, she was obviously keen to see me as soon after Christmas as she could. But she was fairly relaxed about it, so we weren't too worried. Anyway, next thing, when we went out and did some shopping after we saw her, and we didn't get home until quite late in the day, still staying with our poor, long-suffering friends. We got home, and there were 14 messages on the phone, all from this woman, the hematologist. And she said, "Oh, look, you know, it's very serious. I've done some research and I've changed my mind." This is in the space of, you know, a few hours. "I've changed my mind and you need to come in at 7:30 tomorrow and we'll start treatment." Well, I'll come and see you at 7:30, but I don't know about treatment. So we we went in to see her, and she gave me the spiel, and she was very negative about the whole thing. She said she'd done the research. Of course, it did occur to me in my usual suspicious manner that that her husband may have actually asked her what had happened after our meeting, and he wasn't very happy that she'd let the guinea pig escape, I think. But anyway, so at that point, I said, "Well, look, she proposed several kinds of treatment to me, which were horrible, toxic mixtures of things." And and I said, "Well, you know, look, I don't really feel like I'm that sick. Can you show me some research on this?" And she said, "Oh, well, I don't know. It's not going to do you much good. I mean, she said, there isn't a lot. This hasn't been studied very much. But there is some research." And eventually she agreed to give it to me. So she sent it to my email, and I went home and read it. And lo and behold, everybody died within 4 years after going on their treatment program. I thought, well, the odds aren't too fantastic here. And I certainly didn't feel like I was about to die. So I went back to see her again, and I said I wasn't. We weren't inclined to take up the treatment. Which she was pretty shocked when I asked her. I told her I didn't want to do it, and I wanted to read some research, and she was even more upset when I told her I wasn't interested in proceeding. And I told her I was going to get some second opinion. So I went off and got some second opinion. We found a hematologist who I'm not sure even read the file. He just looked at me when I walked in and sat down and said, "If you don't take this treatment, you'll be dead by the end of the year." so I said, yeah, it was a waste of time. So eventually I found, and I also found a renal person who was happy to fit me in. And he turned out to be a fantastic guy. He was sort of a bit of a savior for us there for quite a while. He sat me down and he spent probably an hour and a half just on me, with a whole lot of people waiting in the waiting room, which made me feel a little bit guilty. But he was very thorough, and he went through it all, and he said, "Well, I don't know about all this stuff." He said, "I'm prepared to treat this as a run-of-the-mill renal failure. So why don't you, come back and see me in." I'll make some appointments for you, and we can do some regular blood tests, and we can start talking about our options. So we did that, and things went along. The standard sort of treatment for renal failure involves large doses of steroids, which is something my wife and I were not very keen on, having seen what steroids do to people. So I declined that, which he eventually accepted, and that was okay. And then he tried to get me to take cholesterol tablets or something, and he tried hard to do that for quite a considerable period of time. And then one day he said, he was looking at the blood tests, and he said, "Your cholesterol, it's doing very well. It's gone back down again. It's very steady." And so, that's good. I never heard anything from him about cholesterol again after that. So that was another small victory, I guess, in a sense. Victory is probably the wrong word. Anyway, then this went on for a number of years anyway. And I got progressively sicker, and the option was to go on to dialysis, which I was not at all keen on. I didn't really envisage myself spending the rest of my life hooked up to a machine. So I didn't really want to do that. And I had a chat to Jeannie and the kids and said to them I didn't want to do that. My daughter immediately said, "Oh, well, I'll give you a kidney." But and I said, "Well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't take a kidney from you. You've got your whole life ahead of you," and which was very kind of her. But as it turned out anyway, because Jeannie mentioned it to the nephrologist, and he said, well, they wouldn't take it anyway because she's of childbearing age. So, and they won't take it from a woman of childbearing age, apparently. So that was all right. So everybody was prepared, and my daughter was. She started traveling when she was 18, and she stopped, or she hasn't traveled now, I think, since she was about 38, 39. So she traveled for a very, very long time. And of course, while all this was going on, she was not in the country very much. And so we eventually got to the point where I couldn't breathe one night. We went to the hospital, and I told them that I didn't want dialysis, and so they were going to arrange to put me into palliative care. And at that stage, my daughter was lost in some jungle in, I can't even remember the name of the place, in South America. It'll come to me later anyway. And so we sent a message, or Jeannie managed to get hold of her, I think. And we weren't sure whether she could get back because they'd only given me a few days. But again, I have to say, I thought that was exaggerated at the time. I didn't really feel like it was going to be tomorrow. But anyway, so after that, the palliative care registrar came down to see me, and she was a lovely Burmese lady, and she said she was shocked look on her face. "You're so young. How can you do this? Don't throw your life away." Blah, 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 and so on. And it was about that time that I started to think. It suddenly struck me, I guess, that I was being extraordinarily selfish, and I should, instead of letting things happen as they happen, I was sort of blocking things, and I started to get into that thing, you know, where you've got this constant struggle with ego and all the rest of it, where it manages to find very fascinating and subtle ways to assert itself and make you behave like you're a person. And I started to realize that the separate self, or the ego, or whatever you want to call it, was actually prepared to go to the extent of letting me die to assert that I was a separate person, which was fascinating. But anyway, so I at that point, particularly since my daughter was still overseas, I thought, maybe I'll try dialysis for a little while. So they did a quick operation on me to put a thing into my vein so that I could dialyze, or they could dialyze me, and I started doing some dialysis. Now at that point I had 35 kilos of fluid on board. Little wonder I couldn't breathe, and and they explained to me that you know, this would take at least a week of dialysis to get off. And so anyway, I dialyzed, and the next morning I felt hungry for the first time in a long time, and I did actually feel a bit better. And so that progressed, and then what happened? Then we eventually they put. So you have all sorts of restrictions when you've got these things. So I didn't know at first, but apparently I had a restriction of once you start dialyzing, you have a restriction of 1 fluid liter a day. That's everything. So that even includes ice cream, you know, like it's anything that's fluid of any description, water and whatever, everything. So that was pretty debilitating, and so we dialyzed, and eventually they started to get it off, and then they said just before Christmas, I think, they eventually let me escape, and we went home. And Kimberly had managed to come back before then. My daughter, she got back, and my son. Where was Henley? He was in Canberra, wasn't he? My son was there, and my daughter was back. So that was all good. And we had Christmas together, which was good. And then after that, I had to have a fistula built. So they built a fistula to give the proper dialysis access, because what they'd put into my vein was temporary. And then so I got so I had the operation for that, and then I was going to this dialysis centre 3 times a week for 4 hours at a time, which is the prescribed amount. Just keeps you alive. I think it's the absolute bare minimum. And you're not really functioning. It's pretty useless. Anyway, then the next amusing thing was when the fistula takes a while to mature. So it matured, and then you've got to put needles in it, and when you dialyse. And so this sweet little Filipino nurse was given the task of being the first one to have a go at my fistula, and she said, well, and she had a whole lot of needles in the tray, and I said, what are all these? And she said, oh, well, this is a painkiller, and this is a sedative, and this is a blah 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 blah. I said, well, I don't need any of those. Just put the needle in. And she was absolutely horrified. And eventually her boss came around and said, why the delay? What's going on here? She said, he won't take any painkillers. And she said, well, if the man doesn't want painkillers, don't give him painkillers. And she was horrified at that, and so much so that her boss eventually did it, because she was too scared to do it without painkillers. But it's not that bad. And anyway, she needled me, and that was okay, but it didn't work very well. So the first attempt was a failure. Eventually we got it working. And then I discovered that if I could prove to them I could do it all myself, and I could learn all the bits and pieces and everything, they would actually give me a machine and all the supplies delivered weekly, and I could go home and do it myself. And I thought, terrific, that's great. So the added benefit of going home and doing it yourself is that you can do it as often as you like. You don't have to wait. And they also recommend that you do it at night and sleep through it. So I slept through it, and I could dialyse for 8 hours at a time, which makes you considerably healthier. And it also means that if you're dialysing at night, then you actually have most of the day where you can actually do something, and you feel fit enough to do something. So it improved quality of life considerably. So we went along with that for a while, and then my nephrologist, my long-suffering nephrologist, said, well, I have to try and get you on a transplant list. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. And he said, the only problem is you've been diagnosed with light chain deposition disease. And the general thinking is that if you've got that, you'll destroy whatever kidney we give you, so they won't give you one. Okay, great. So then we went along to, we saw a couple of people about this issue, and the nephrologist had close links with Royal North Shore Hospital, which is where they do their the transplants, and we still don't do them in Canberra, actually. So anyway, I went to see this guy in Royal North Shore, and he'd done a bit of research, and he was supposed to decide whether or not I could have a transplant. And I was expecting him to tell me all about how light chain deposition disease was terrible and blah, 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 blah. But he actually shocked me. He said, well, I've just come across this new research from the Mayo Clinic, and they say that the evidence suggests that the light chain deposition disease doesn't necessarily destroy new kidneys, and I would recommend that you get one. I said, terrific, okay. So then we went through a period where you sort of, at that point, you enter into a rolling series of tests, which all have to be up to date so that they can assess you at any given point in time. And I think I would have to say I've probably had 99% of all tests known to man over and over and over and over again. And, I've been pumped full of uranium and Christ knows what. It was all very interesting. So it's fantastic for revisiting some of my favorite teachings, such as, you know, the three characteristics and the Four Noble Truths, and all the stuff that the Buddha taught shortly after he was enlightened and eventually persuaded to teach. The core of Buddhism, really, the essence of it, and you're sort of confronted with it constantly, every day. So I found that really fascinating. But anyway, so we got on the transplant list, and the only people who came up were some, you know, well, I think one was 95, like the kidney was, well, the person was 95 years old, and the kidney was obviously 95 years old too. And I think there was another one who was in his 70s or something. And the nephrologist said, no, they're no good for you. We're not going to have them. So we didn't accept any of that, or he didn't accept any of that, just told me about it later, which was fine by me. He said, and Jeannie eventually took the decision that she would give me a kidney, which I thought was extraordinarily generous and brave. And I was reluctant, to be honest with you. I did try to talk her out of it because I thought, well, it's bad enough one of us has got this problem. I don't want to threaten your life. But anyway, she was insistent, and she mentioned it to the nephrologist when we went to see him one day. And he said, oh, so he talked about these other options and so on. And Jeannie said, no, I just want to give Ron a kidney. And he said, well, we'll see if you're compatible. So then she had to start doing all the tests I was doing. and eventually he came back to us and said, no, you're not compatible. There's a particular agent in my blood which will destroy her kidney in 5 minutes flat. So that won't work. However, he said, there is another option. I should actually make the observation. Previously, there was a ready supply of kidneys in this country that were usually harvested on a Friday night from 20 to 25-year-olds who got very drunk and smashed their cars up. And well, sad as it was actually a very, very good source of kidneys for people who needed them. Once they cracked down on that, on drink driving, that source disappeared. So it was really difficult to get kidneys. And I think partly as a result of that, and for other reasons, obviously, all around the world now, governments run exchange programs where they have donors who want to put a kidney into a pool, which they matched via all these tests that Jeannie and I were doing, so that the match is almost perfect. It's far better than filial sort of things. They seldom ever have a problem with them. It's almost 100% hit rate, which is pretty amazing. And so, and in our particular case, we include New Zealand. So it's Australia and New Zealand. So the kidney can come from anywhere in Australia or New Zealand. And by the time we'd gone through all this, Jeannie was, she wasn't very keen to give a kidney to anybody but me to begin with. But by the time we'd gone through this, she was coming around to the idea that maybe this wasn't such a bad idea. So anyway, eventually we ended up in the Royal North Shore Hospital, and Jeannie, you know, the way it works is that they harvest. So it's a sort of a round robin. So in our case, there were 7 couples. So they harvest all the kidneys in the morning, and then they fly them to their destinations, and then they put them in, depending on what time they arrive during the day, in the destination. And so Jeannie was wheeled in at about 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And they're given up until that point. They're continually asked, do you really want to go through with this? And it goes on and on. And eventually they harvest it, and they do them all at one time, because if one drops out, then it changes the whole thing. Yeah, it completely messes up all the exchanges that they've set up. So so everybody, fortunately, on that day, fortunately for me, agreed to go through with it. And so my kidney, I found out, I wasn't supposed to know, but somebody let it slip, that my kidney actually came from Perth. So I didn't end up in the theatre until about 8 o'clock at night. And so I went in, had the operation. I woke up in, what do you call it? Intensive care at about 4 o'clock in the morning or thereabouts. Very groggy, and immediately went back to sleep. And and the next time I woke up, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning. And something was different. It was extraordinary, actually. For the first time in, I don't know, many years anyway, I actually had energy. I could feel it. I could feel it in my body. I wanted to get up and walk and do something, because it was just, I didn't know what to do with it. It was amazing, an incredible feeling. And so that happened. And then about 7 o'clock, bit after I woke up, a guy came round, a physiotherapist, and said, okay, let's go for a walk. And I said, seriously? You want to go for a walk? And he said, yeah, come on, let's go. I said, all right. So I was hooked up to all sorts of stuff. So we were towing all this stuff around the hospital and having a walk. And I felt pretty good. So I sort of said to him, where's Jeannie? And he said, oh, let's not overdo it. And I said, no, where's my wife? And he said, oh, she's in a ward around there somewhere. And I said, oh, well, come on, let's go and visit her. And he said, you sure? I said, yeah, come on. So we walked over there. And of course, in my case, it's all upside. I was sick. Whatever they did to me, I felt terrific. Jeannie's case, she'd lost a kidney, and she wasn't feeling very well at all. So here's me marching in 7 o'clock in the morning, and she's sitting there sort of with this look of absolute bewilderment on her face, saying, what are you doing here? And so anyway, that was fun for me. And and I went back again. And then, you know, I had eventually, Jeannie didn't have to stay in the hospital that long, fortunately for her. So she managed to escape pretty quickly, but they kept me on for quite some time. And they also had an outbreak of something. I can't remember what it was now. It was a flu, was it? And I wasn't allowed to leave. So I had the whole ward to myself while these robots were going around vacuuming everything and sterilizing everything, which was a fascinating experience. But apparently, yeah. So anyway, I won't go into any of that. So that was great. And eventually, after, I don't know, about 3 weeks or so, they let me go home. And by that time, Jeannie had gone back to Canberra, and we'd had some relatives come up from Melbourne, and they'd gone back with her. And so my daughter, who was then living in Sydney, or still is actually, agreed to drive me back to Canberra. So we came. She drove me back to Canberra, and then I had to have another series of operations after that for various reasons, which, you know, it's probably it's detail we don't need to go into today. But I wasn't actually able to escape the clutches of the medical profession until until about midway through the following year, midway through. So this was August 17 when we had the transplant, and we went overseas, I think June 18. Was that Henley's graduation? Okay. No, 19 was the graduation. My son was studying at Leiden University in Holland, so we did quite a lot of travel after that, because there was sort of a lot of pent up frustration not being able to do anything for 10 years or whatever it was. So we did quite a bit of traveling, and we spent quite a bit of time with him while we were at it, which was great. And then after that, what happened? Well, you know, life is as life is now, which is a hell of a lot better than it used to be. So that's my story. Thank you. I recognize a face there, I think. It's this one.
Oh, June.
June, that's it. Yes. Hi, June, how are you? I haven't seen you for ages. Okay. Is she still in Canberra? Don't know. Yeah. I haven't seen her for years. She was with
Can you recognize this?
which one?
Major?
Oh, right. Okay. There you go.
And Moira?
Yes, lots of familiar faces. Hi.
Hi, Ron. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good.
Lovely
Good.
to
Good.
see you.
Yeah. I have very fond memories, and yeah, I really appreciate the time you put in back in the days when I was getting started in Dharma, and we had our weekly meditation sessions with you.
All right.
I don't know if
Yes.
you remember, but you had incredible patience because I was always the one asking annoying questions. So it
Oh,
reached
no,
a
no.
point where at the end of your guided meditation, you would then say, so any questions? And you would just look straight at me. I would have all these annoying, frustrating questions.
Well, there's no such thing as a difficult or frustrating question. I'm sure I learned a lot from your questions. I always found that was the best way to learn, was to actually talk and let people ask questions, and then you'd actually find out whether you knew anything or not.
Yeah. Well,
So
thank
I'm
you.
sure I was very grateful for the questions, but I do remember the sessions, and it's lovely to see you again. I'm glad you're still hard at it.
Yeah. I think I'm guessing I will be for the rest of my life. But yeah, just wanted to let you know that we really appreciate it. So thank you. Your impact has far-reaching consequences. So thank you.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I think June can't get connected somehow. She's trying to say something, but she can't turn it on.
Unmute. She doesn't know how to unmute.
Oh, unmute? She can't find it. I'm lip reading now. Never mind. We'll catch up. Are you still in Canberra? Oh, she can nod. Don't sign to me. I can't read it.
Okay.
Are you still in Canberra? No, she's still trying to tell me something. I don't know what it is. Queanbeyan, is she? All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Ron, for that very, very interesting story about the medical professionals and their opinions and how resilient you've been. But in the end, karma has ripened for you to have a second life, because largely from the good causes and conditions of not only medical miracle, but really love of your loving wife and family. So it's a very nice story to know that someone doesn't give not just their life as a whole, but also, if possible, if necessary, piece of it, bits of their body.
Yeah.
And this medical miracle has allowed to do that. If we don't have the advanced medical technology, this would never be possible. You wouldn't believe how many people have died exactly within the year they were diagnosed. So we have a lot to rejoice, not only in the medical technology, but also the system. The government works so hard to help, and many professionals, many individuals, many philanthropic organizations, many individuals donate so much to this kind of research and work. And so their all merit is a very, very great gift. If you don't have life, what's your career? What's your wealth? What's your education? What's your family? There's very, very nothing there. So it's very inspiring to hear Ron's story. So with this, we have a lot to think about, how to be generous to not only towards those things, give things we don't need, but give things we ourselves would not likely to part. In the Buddhist story, the one who's willing to give parts of their life, body, is actually the great generosity, not just generosity. It's a great generosity. And a lot of people believe, without being in Buddhism, that they definitely believe in organ donations. And what's worth of whole body being buried, when it had many parts of his has got benefit to others. So I think it's a very good. So thank you, Ron, and a very congratulations, and to Jeannie. Well done. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So nice to see you both here. We'll dedicate the merits so that you continue to live well and strong and healthy. And like Nigel said, we all remember so many years of your input into the society in a very initial stages of when we were forming as an organization, and when we were carrying all these boxes and on the ute and on the trailers, traveling, and trying the Lama show, and Ron was always doing all the organizing and the carting and all, and then plus running the classes and getting our center really properly established as an entity that we now are. And so thank you very much, and we'll dedicate the merits. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about that technical blunder because I muted it when we were swapping, but then I did. So thank you, everybody. See you next time. I'm sure our sessions are now going to be back here from most week onwards. So there will be different speakers, if not me, running the class sessions and talks. So please feel free to come, because as long we now are basically 100% vaccinated, so we are not getting any 12-year-old here anyway. So there's no worry about people catching any non-existing disease, because we just don't have them, because everybody's safe. So thank you, everybody, for being here. So those who are able to stay back, please do so. We have a bit of shared lunch. Others who are here, thank you for joining us. Nice to see you, everybody. Take care. Heidi's down in South Australia. Maybe she recognized you. Yeah, Ron, I think she's Heidi. Heidi there, yeah. Yeah. Others I can't quite tell. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. That's all.